The Galactic Empire's greatest villains prologue. The Hollow Throne. The Empire was built on conquest, held together by fear, and ruled by monsters. Some whispered their names in terror, others in admiration, but all knew them as the harbingers of destruction. This is their story: the minds that shaped nightmares, the hands that wove genocide into policy, and the voices that turned planets into graves. The Butcher of Kalar. High Admiral Sarius Kane. When the rebellion on Kalar 3 sparked into full-scale war, the Emperor sent Sarius Kane to quell the flames. He did not simply crush the rebels, he annihilated the planet's biosphere. Kalar 3 did not burn, it suffocated. Kane's doctrine of total war became the standard for imperial suppression. His fleets arrived like wraiths, and when they left, nothing remained, but Kane was no mindless brute. He believed in efficiency, in precision. Every massacre served a purpose. He saw himself as a sculptor, carving order from chaos. His ultimate ambition? To burn away weakness until only the strongest remained. The voice of obedience. Minister Aleph Voss. Where Kane crushed resistance with warships, Aleph Voss destroyed it with words. The minister of propaganda turned truth into clay, reshaping it to suit the Empire's needs. She was the architect of the memory wars, rewriting history so thoroughly that entire civilizations forgot they had ever been free. Voss did not believe in morality, only in control. She engineered betrayals, orchestrated false revolutions, and turned heroes into villains with nothing more than whispers. By the time she was done, entire species had surrendered their past, their present, and their future. But her greatest trick? Convincing the people they had chosen their own chains. The architect of shadows, Lord Executor Driven Zell never wore a uniform, never gave speeches, never appeared in official records. He was the man behind the throne, the whisper in the Emperor's ear. His assassins moved unseen, his agents pulled the strings of war and peace alike. He was the Empire's hidden blade, a shadow that shaped destiny. When the Empire needed a planet to disappear, he did not send a fleet. He sent a single ship carrying a single individual with a single vial of engineered death. He never threatened, he never demanded. He simply made people vanish. Tzl, power was not in armies, but in knowledge. And he knew everything. The scourge of empires, Vera Zareth, the Crimson Warden. Where others sought control, Vera Zareth sought chaos. The former imperial general turned warlord, she believed the empire was too merciful. When the emperor refused to glass entire star systems as a warning, she betrayed him. With stolen fleets and an army of fanatics, she waged a war so brutal even the empire recoiled. Planets fell to her reign of terror, entire species were turned into chattel, and her name became legend. The Empire won in the end, but only barely. They say she was executed, but no body was ever found. Some believe she still lurks in the void, waiting for the day the Empire is weak enough to burn it. Epilogue. The villains that shaped the stars. They were not heroes. They were not tragic figures. They were monsters, each in their own way. But without them, the Empire would never have become what it was. Some were slain, others erased, but their legacies endured. Because in the end, the greatest villains were not the ones who ruled the Empire. The Galactic Empire's greatest villains. The Galactic Empire spanned 1,000 star systems, ruled by the iron grip of its emperors and enforced by its legions. But behind its wars, conquests, and tragedies were the hands of its greatest villains, men and women whose ambition, cruelty, and brilliance shaped the galaxy in ways no hero ever could. This is their story. Chapter I. The Architect of Terror, Lord Verrick Cairn. Few names evoked as much fear as Lord Verrick Cairn, the Empire's foremost strategist and the mastermind behind the massacre of Azuran Prime. A man of cold precision, he saw war as an equation, reducing entire worlds to numbers on a ledger. Azuran Prime was a rebellious stronghold. When standard sieges failed, Cairn devised the orbital chokehold doctrine, a strategy that cut off all planetary imports, turning the world's thriving cities into graveyards of starvation and disease. He ensured no relief ships breached the blockade, executing supply runners publicly as warnings. By the time the planet surrendered, only 6 million of its original 90 million inhabitants remained. And Cairn? He never once visited the surface, he simply watched from the command deck of his flagship, sipping wine as the people below ate each other to survive. Chapter 2. The Butcher of Arrow 7, High Inquisitor Selva Thorn. There were many who policed the Empire's laws, but High Inquisitor Selva Thorn was something else entirely. She was not a soldier or an executioner, she was a force of nature, a woman who turned interrogation into an art form of suffering. On Arrow 7, she exposed an underground resistance cell, but instead of executing the rebels, she did something far worse: she let them live. She made them watch as their families were systematically erased from history. Records altered, genetic traces wiped, their children given new identities and raised in imperial orphanages, the rebels soon learned that death would have been mercy. They were freed, allowed to roam the streets as broken shells, living reminders that defying the Empire meant losing more than your life, it meant losing your very existence. Chapter 3, The Iron Regent, Grand Moff Draken Vorlis. Not all villains sought destruction. Some sought power. Draken Vorlis was no mere tyrant, he was a visionary. When the Emperor was assassinated, the Empire fell into chaos, warring factions tearing at its carcass. But Vorlis? He saw opportunity. In 3 months, he crushed 6 warlords, bribed 12 governors, and manipulated the Imperial Senate into declaring him regent. And once he held power, he ensured he would never lose it. He abolished elections, replaced planetary governors with AI-controlled overseers, and created the Loyalty Mandate, a decree that implanted tracking chips in every citizen above the age of 10. For 20 years, the galaxy knew peace, but it was the peace of chains. And when he finally died, his cybernetic body too worn to sustain him, the Empire realized the truth: he was the only thing holding it together. Chapter 4, The Phantom of Shadows, Lady Nixia Vale. No records existed of Lady Nixia Vale's birth. No official documents, no genetic traces. Yet every intelligence agency whispered her name in fear. She was the Empire's whispered blade, the assassin who eliminated threats before they even realized they were doomed. Crown princes, planetary senators, rebel generals, she left them all dead in their beds with no sign of forced entry. Her most infamous act? The silent coup. One night, an entire Imperial Council of 32 officials went to sleep. By dawn, they were all dead. No alarms triggered, no security footage recorded. Only their lifeless bodies, each with a single, tiny incision on the neck, evidence of an implanted toxin that dissolved within minutes. With the council eliminated, the Emperor faced no opposition. No one dared speak against the throne ever again. Epilogue: The legacy of monsters. The Galactic Empire was destined to rise and fall, but its greatest villains left scars deeper than any war. Their actions reshaped history, proving that true power was not in fleets or armies, but in fear, control, and the willingness to do what others would not. And as the Empire crumbled, rebels whispered a final, chilling truth: empires can be rebuilt. But monsters never truly die.